What is anxious depression? Hello, lovely YouTube family. Welcome back to Healthy Drops. Before we start, I would like you to hit that red subscribe button so that you never miss out on any of our videos. The concept of anxiety depression as a separate diagnostic unit or subtype is currently unclear and controversial. Depression and anxiety are traditionally conceptualized as two independent disorders, but they are very coexistent at a rate of 40 to 50%. 1 to 3, nevertheless, no unified standard has been established to define anxiety depression as an independent medical condition. Clinicians and researchers conceptualize the idea of a mixture of anxiety and depression in different ways. The lack of knowledge in this area underscores the importance of nosological investigations of the disease, as relevant treatment recommendations are often based on diagnostic criteria. In addition, the terms anxiety depression, mixed depressive anxiety disorder, and mixed anxiety depression are often used interchangeably to further complicate this diagnosis. From a clinical and scientific point of view, this review investigated the notion of anxious depression as a separate diagnostic entity and how uncertainty surrounding its diagnosis has created clinical confusion. A review of the literature was concluded to explore the various ways that anxious depression is currently defined. Weidner's diagnostic criteria for Table 1 have previously been set forth as a framework for establishing diagnostic validity in psychiatric disease and are useful in comparing data between various research groups. In this review, Weidner's diagnosis criteria were used to organize the disparate findings and to review and compare the extant evidence supporting the definition of anxious depression as an independent diagnosis. The disorders of anxiety and depression are not the same, but they have similar elements. Depression produces emotions such as despair and anger. Energy levels are usually very low, and depressed people often feel overwhelmed by the daily tasks and personal relationships that are very important to their lives. However, people with anxiety disorders experience anxiety, panic, or anxiety in situations where most people do not feel anxiety or intimidation. Patients can experience sudden panic or anxiety attacks without an obvious trigger and often live with persistent worries and fears. If left untreated, anxiety disorders and depression can make it difficult to work, maintain relationships, or leave home. Treatments for anxiety and depression are similar. This can explain why the two disorders are often confused. Antidepressants are commonly used for anxiety and depression, and behavioral therapies often help people overcome both conditions. No one knows exactly why depression and anxiety often come together. In one study, 85% of patients with major depression were diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, and 35% showed symptoms of panic disorder. Other anxiety disorders include obsessive-compulsive disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Anxiety and depression are considered twins of mood disorders because they often hold hands. Generalized anxiety disorder, probably partly due to brain chemistry dysfunction, is not a normal concern before taking a test or waiting for a biopsy result. People with anxiety disorders suffer from what President Franklin Roosevelt called fearing himself. For only partially known reasons, even in the absence of real threats, the brain's fighting or escape mechanisms are activated. Chronic fear is like being chased by a fictional tiger. The feeling of being in danger never disappears. Being both anxious and depressed is a tremendous challenge. Clinicians have observed that when anxiety causes depression together, the symptoms of both depression and anxiety become more severe than when each disorder occurs alone. In addition, depression takes longer to subside, making the disease more chronic and refractory. Read more about treating depression. And after all, depression exacerbated by anxiety has a much higher suicide rate than depression alone. In one study, 92% of depressed patients who attempted suicide also had severe anxiety 1. Like alcohol and barbiturates, depression and anxiety are a deadly combination. That is all for today, folks. I hope you liked the video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so that you never miss any amazing videos from us.